Hey friends, welcome to Our Power is Within podcast. I'm your host, Chas Smith, and my mission for this podcast is to inspire you to take your power back and to realize that you are the healer that you have been looking for all along. So, I do want to just start out by saying how much I appreciate all of your support. If you are listening and you do find this content that my guests share with you all valuable, please consider taking a pause and leaving a 5-star rating or a quick review on Apple Podcast. Or you could share your favorite episode on social media, tagging me at Our Powers Within. Or you can always click the link at the bottom of the show notes to the virtual tip jar. And speaking of the tip jar, I do want to send a huge shout out to Mary, Kathy, Karen, and Linda. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you all. It goes a long way. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And as some of you may have noticed or not, there was no new episode last week. Yep, no new episode last week. It was my first week in 80 weeks that I missed an episode. And you know what? It is exactly what I needed. The weekend prior, I just spontaneously felt this need to unplug. And I did just that instantly. I just felt it. I knew it was past time. I needed a break from the social media, from the noise, from the stimulation, and I just unplugged. And that meant that I didn't end up getting to edit and complete a podcast. But it was amazing. It was great. It was wonderful. It was exactly what the doctor, aka myself, ordered. And here I am back for the 80th episode to share with you all. And to top it off, it's going to be a really fun panel discussion today, my panel number 2. But before I get into the panel discussion, I want to go into the challenge for this week, which is inspired by my hiatus last week. So my challenge to you is to, in your stillness, ask yourself, is there something that you need from you right now? A little knocking or a quiet whisper calling your name and making a request. Maybe that looks like for you slowing down. Or maybe it's almost the opposite. Maybe it's saying yes more often to yourself, to your joys, to your bliss, to your satisfaction. Maybe it's the need to take more pauses in life and breathe or orient. Or maybe it's like me and you just need to unplug and remove some of that outside stimulation. Whatever it is, I challenge you to hear it, to honor it, and to remember that you are 1000% worth it. Please, please, please do not wait until the whispers turn into a scream. Trust me. All right, so back to the panel discussion. It is our second panel discussion. This week's theme is emerging back into life, and I have 3 lovely ladies in this discussion to talk about and share how they navigated saying yes to living their true expressions and saying yes to life again, whether that was entering into relationships, saying yes to a new job, making new friends, building a business, going on vacation, all the things, whatever it is. We just talk about saying yes to life and how that looks with our healing and becoming practices. And we go into so much more. So I think it's going to be a good one, and I'm excited to share it with you all. So let's get to it. All right, today I have a really fun discussion that's about to happen with 3 awesome ladies who've decided to join us on the podcast today and participate in my second panel discussion. So welcome, Jill, Meredith, and Rena. Thank you so much for being here with me for a nice, fun group chat. I appreciate it. I think what we'll do, just to kind of start out, is let each of you take a turn to just share a little bit about when you began your journey, whether it was in like a DNRS or rewiring or some other form of healing work that was really the catalyst for you to really embrace and embody healing and transforming and recovering in your life. So, Jill, if you would like to go first.
Sure. I'm Jill White, and I started my brain retraining journey in November of 2017. I had been very, very ill for a solid year, very debilitated, and my life had gotten extremely small. And so that's when I began my journey, November of 2017.
Awesome. And did you said brain retraining? So did you do DNRS or Gupta, or where did you start in that?
Started with DNRS, and I was pretty much fully committed to DNRS for about 3 years, 3 solid years. So,
Awesome. Okay,
yeah.
great. And how about Meredith?
Hi, I'm Meredith Walensky. I really started my healing journey in earnest when I quit my job in October of 2019 and decided to devote myself to healing. And I began brain retraining with DNRS in December of 2019.
Wow, okay. And so that's been a few years now also.
Yes, just past my 2-year anniversary.
Congratulations. And
Thanks.
Rena, how about you?
Hi, I'm Rena. I have a different journey, I think, than a lot of people around here. I started my healing journey I started with Dr. Sarno about 12 and a half years ago. And I felt like I was kind of doing it on my own, using his book in whatever capacity I understood. And over the years, picked up different tools. And then about 2 and a bit years ago, I went deeper into my healing journey using a methodology called focusing and used that alongside with, I did DNRS and Gupta and a bunch of other programs. And I've kind of created my own healing path and journey.
That's awesome. And that's really great because that's the goal essentially is we find we find a program or a tool or modality and we become our own experiment, and maybe it's not one thing but a mixture of things that really supports us as an individual based on, the life we've lived and what we've gone through and what we're going through and what feels most supportive for us. So it's awesome that it can be unique to each individual, and it can be a lot of different tools rather than just one. And I'm sure as we get into the discussion with the other ladies, I'm sure they have other tools and modalities that they eventually stumbled upon and leaned into and experimented and explored with as well. And I love that, Rena. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Sarno. Anyone who listens to the podcast knows he gets mentioned quite a bit. He was definitely a pioneer in understanding mind body connections and the symptoms that can manifest in the body through the mind in a sense. So let's see. So you've all been doing this for there's 2 years, 3 years, and lots of years to various degrees. But I'm curious, I know Meredith, you had said you even had quit your job at one point to really focus on your healing. And I'm wondering at what point did you like if you did retraining and then you started to experiment with other practices or modalities, at what point did you feel that you were ready to to start incorporating other things? Because for anyone who's done DNRS, we know that they ask you for like a 6-month kind of like strict commitment where you don't focus on anything else and really just stick with rewiring. So I don't know if either Jill or Meredith wanted to like kind of speak on that experience of knowing when and discerning when to start incorporating anything else. Go ahead, Meredith.
Sure. So, actually, when I quit my job and started what I called my health employment, the first thing I was really focused on was actually a diet to heal my gut. And I put a lot of emphasis and stock into doing this diet. It's called the GAPS diet. And someone had mentioned DNRS to me, and I kind of had it in the back of my mind as a thing I might try. And so when I tried it, I wasn't totally sold yet, if that makes sense. And so even though I started doing the DNRS practices, the 5 pillars, I still was kind of dipping my hands in different cookie jars, even as I was doing DNRS. I continued to focus on the diet. I think I even was doing therapy while I was in those first 6 months. However, I was doing a type of therapy that I think is actually pretty amenable to DNRS. Like we weren't going back in the history. We were really focusing on strategies. So I think the type of therapy I happened to be doing worked well. But I can say that I have had a lot of healing with DNRS, and it has always been kind of part of a portfolio of different things that I was doing at the same time.
Oh, okay. So you kind of did it backwards rather than like starting with that strictly. You kind of just were playing and dabbling with different things also that felt supportive for you.
Yeah,
Really
I
cool.
was absolutely committed to DNRS. Once I started it, it was so obvious to me how full of pops I was, which are those unhelpful thoughts. And so I really was committed to it. I just wasn't willing to kind of let go of these other things that at the time felt really important to me, if that makes sense.
It really does. And I'm curious if at any point in your retraining then did you was there ever a point where you realized or felt like the other stuff was a distraction and that you needed to just like let it all go and totally focus on only one thing? Or did you really feel more that it was all in alignment and an integral part of the experience?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Chasmith, and especially with the diet gut health piece. It's been a really interesting evolution and journey. And I can't tell you whether doing the diet helped me believe that I could eat a lot of foods that had been triggers, or doing the diet helped support my gut healing faster than just DNRS, or if it actually was an integral part of my healing. I'll never know since I did all of these things concurrently. But for me, I always had this sense that I was kind of a detective putting together pieces of a puzzle, and DNRS kind of became a larger and larger piece of my puzzle. But I never just fully devoted myself only to DNRS. That being said, I think that the underlying foundational philosophies of DNRS can lend themselves to a lot of practices, if that makes sense. So, that underlying idea that I had limbic system impairment and that I was going to rewire my brain and that was going to be a path to health, that became more and more foundational in my healing journey. But I did not necessarily think that I only had to follow the DNRS regimen to get there, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And Jill, how about you? Did you have a similar approach as Meredith or Rena, or were you like, I'm going to do a DNRS and I'm all in?
When I found DNRS, I completely bought into it. I really, really did. And I was completely there for a couple of years, really solid couple of years. And then into the third year, I spent the third year completely into DNRS as well. But that whole year, I felt like I needed something else. So I was just keeping my eyes open and looking. I was not sure what I needed, but I felt like there was something. And so at the end of that year was when I started Dr. Katz's Primal Trust program. And she really gave me the solid, I don't know, the foundation for grounding, not grounding as we know it, going out in the grass type grounding, but I mean the daily grounding for just knowing where I was going, what I was doing, what my focus was, gave me a centering place of this is what I'm doing today, this is who I am. And I loved the part of her program that goes into values. I've always been really big into values. And so when she took me back to that and I was able to revisit values for me, it just gave me just that more sense of who I am, my true self, and really, really gave me the framework that I needed to shift me into what do I want my life to look like now. And I started somatics at the beginning of that year, and that was huge for me. I felt like I needed something body-wise. I needed some movement, some gentle movement, and somatics gave me exactly what I needed there. And even as I transitioned out of rounds, that third year, I had just lost my dad, and so doing rounds was really, really impossible almost for me to do anyway. And so I began to just really find a quiet, meditative form of prayer that really, really, really resonated with me. And just found a breathing pattern that really settled me and calmed me and centered me. So that helped me to shift out of rounds very easily once I got connected with that.
Okay, so there was like this unfolding, and as you began to
Yes.
shift and unfold and open yourself up to these other options for as far as tools, modalities, and ways of seeing the healing process, did it feel like aligned for you? And did you start to notice
Yes.
that it was
Yes.
really what you needed?
Yes. Yes. And
Yeah.
I thought there's something in this that I want to develop for my whole future. It just felt like this is it for me. This is the solid ground right here that I want and that I need. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And Rena, I'm curious for you because you were already a long time ago exploring the whole realm of the mind body connection and then tried several different tools and kind of created your own path. But I wonder, like, what were some key indicators that helped you discern what was right for you, what was most supportive for you in your like personal experiment?
It's a good question. I think that for me, what I'm seeing, since it's been many years of being on this path, there are a lot of tools that kind of keep repeating themselves in different programs I've taken and different uh, people, professionals I've worked with. And really, what it comes down to is that it kind of goes in a spiral, the way I see it, that there are certain tools that just feel inaccessible to me, felt inaccessible to me at certain points in my journey, that as I went around the spiral, came back and were then more easily accessible to me. I was able to do them with more ease. And so I really took the path of least resistance and just went with what worked for me at any given time. So sometimes that was rounds and sometimes it was totally not. Sometimes it was more journaling things, sometimes totally not. Sometimes it was listening to guided meditations, sometimes totally not. So I really just went with what's working for me now. I don't want to resist, I don't want to push. I'm just going to go with what I can.
Okay. I love this. I'm curious. Okay, so how did you discern what was working for you versus because there's a lot of theory or belief that sometimes we're just in like what's quote unquote limbic resistance, like, and if you feel the resistance you're supposed to just do more of something. But how were you able to like really discern and just kind of support yourself by saying, no, actually this isn't resistance. I legitimately just feel better, or this other tool feels more supportive for where I'm at in my life.
Well, I believed in all the tools. So they were all kind of equal to me. I didn't feel that one was necessarily better than a different one. And so I didn't go down that path of, oh, well, my limbic system is telling me that this one's better, or this one's worse, or this one's more helpful, and I shouldn't trust my limbic system. It was more, I believe in all of these different modalities, and I don't have the strength to sit there and push myself to do, go push myself past what feels okay right now. And I'm just going to go with what I can. And that, as long as I was doing something, then that was good enough.
I love this. I really relate because I used to tell my brain every day, just like, hey, I'm committed to rewiring my brain. Like, we're doing this. We're committed. We're doing it. It doesn't matter if I do a round or a meditation or a visual, or just a visualization, or if I just go breathe. It was just like saying, it doesn't need to look a certain way for me to be committed to this journey. And that's a really great way to look at it. So then if you're looking at it as all of them work and you believe in all of them, then you do what feels good and supportive to you and juicy in the moment.
Yeah. And it's possible that maybe had I pushed myself, quote unquote, maybe I would have healed faster or better or whatever. But that type of thinking is also not helpful. So I'm trying to be patient with myself as I continue on this journey and just go with what's working for me now.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I really resonate with what Rena is sharing. And Chasmith, I think there is a lot of focus on that limbic resistance. And I think the further we get along in our healing, the better we become at separating that limbic resistance from true intuition, that part of us that is saying, I actually trust that I know in this moment what is going to make me feel safe and okay, which is kind of what we're all after, right? And so that capacity to know that really what we're after is that safety in our body can let go of the need for it to be a certain thing and just start to listen more and more to how does that show up in my body? How do I create that in my body? That practice, I think, became really important for me over time.
Yeah, it's taking our power back. And it's so true. That's one of the beautiful things about all these tools is they do bring us closer to true self. And yeah, it's like trusting that we are capable of discerning and that we are intuitive and that we are tapped in and that we do know what's best for us. And it's not what somebody else says or some book or some program. And so, yeah, that's really awesome. And Jill, you had something you wanted to say also.
Oh, I just wanted to say yes, because just that learning to listen to that deep inner self and say, what I'm hearing is right and follow it, that intuition that all of you all have spoken of has been huge for my journey. Speaking up for myself and listening to myself and what I need in the moment has been huge, very huge.
Yeah. And like you said, Jill, you had that third year where you stayed super committed to DNRS, even though intuitively you did feel a pull, like you felt there was
Yes.
something there that wanted you to do something different. It was like, it was there. But
Yes,
it took you a
that's
minute.
right.
Yeah. It was like, hey, I'm right here. I'm just hanging out waiting for you to notice me.
And I kept going, what's next? What's next? I know there's something.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing is a lot of us sometimes we forgot at some point in our life how to really listen and discern for ourselves and own our power. And that's one of the beautiful things, I guess, about sometimes getting unfortunately sick or in pain
Absolutely.
is it brings us back home.
Yeah, I feel like it's been worth it for that right there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just become proud of who you are and value who you are and really stand in that is so big.
Meredith, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Oh, I was just going to add that I listened to a Curable podcast once where they talked about 5 things that you will learn along your healing journey. And one of them, Chasmith, was that you could actually get to a place where you felt grateful for this journey. And I can say that at the beginning of my journey, that felt really impossible. And I remember kind of listening to that podcast and saying, oh, yeah, I think I'm at that place where I can appreciate what this has taken me to today.
Yeah, yeah. And there's probably someone listening right now and they're like, she crazy. They're both crazy. I'm never going to be grateful for this. And then one day they're going to get to that point and they're going to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
I get it now.
It's definitely not true till it's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Was this your experience as well, Rena and Jill?
Definitely. 100%. I wouldn't trade it. Would not trade it.
I agree also, very much so. And the more I am on this journey, I think it multiplies exponentially. So there's looking back in hindsight and realizing, oh, wow, it was worth it. And then there's more growth that happens, more healing that happens. And I look back and I'm even more grateful for what I went through. So there's this moment where it's like, oh, there's gratitude for what happened. And then there's like, whoa, there's more gratitude for what happened. Oh, whoa, okay. This is big.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like so much you start to discover it's so much more. It's always been bigger than just the physical symptoms. It's so much more than that. It becomes so much more than that.
So much more than that. And it gets to the point where it's so deep you really can't even express the gratitude. There just aren't words. It's just
Mhm.
such a deep, deep sense of gratefulness.
Yes. And speaking of that, so we go through these journeys, we have these discoveries, we get more aligned to truth, to self, to what's authentic and real for us. And at some point, we're starting to feel better in a physical way. And we feel like it's time to start saying yes to life again and stepping into and reemerging back into life, which is kind of like what we wanted the theme of this discussion to be, reemerging back into life. And so I'm curious to hear how and in what ways each of your lives in a sense have like shifted or redirected through this experience, and when in your quote unquote retraining, I know retraining is kind of like the word we use for rewiring the brain, but ultimately we're really, it's all this healing, and or I like to prefer to call it the becoming journey. So I'm curious at what point you each decided or felt like, okay, it feels right. I feel ready. Like I want to start, creating a new career or going back into my old career. I want to start creating and crafting this life of my dreams. So I don't know if anyone wants to speak first on that discernment and just kind of knowing when they felt ready to like emerge, and was there a shift, or did you kind of like, did everything change? Just tell me all of it. Rena, you can go.
Sure. So I can't say that there was one specific moment where all of a sudden it happened. I think there were many small moments where that asked me to take a moment to reflect on what I was doing and make changes. And so whether that meant pivoting in my professional life, increasing my movement and the types of activities I did throughout the day, I can't say that there was one specific moment, but it's been this evolution, and it's really cool to watch the evolution as it continues to evolve. And I continue to see more and more little nudges from inside pushing me, not pushing, asking me to go one way or another.
Okay. And so was there a pivot then? Did you realize that there was no going back to the old life you used to live, or the old job?
Oh,
Was there
yeah.
a shift in friendships?
Definitely a shift in my job. I completely changed my profession altogether. There was a moment, there was a chunk of time where I was doing both things simultaneously as I weeded out the old and brought in the new. And it took a couple of years, but I got there where I'm no longer doing that anymore and feel so relieved to not be doing that work anymore. And with friends, I think it's stayed the same.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So you just had like this core group of friends that kind of were with you and supported you through all of it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what about you, Meredith?
Yeah, there were a few key moments, I think, when I started to feel a little bit more ready or notice myself kind of coming out into life more. As I said, I kind of started my retraining journey in December of 2019, and I had quit my job. So I was really kind of creating this cocoon for myself. Um, and then things happened in the world where my cocoon became a lot more cocoony. And a lot of people were home around me. And so I ended up creating a really small universe in the beginning of my becoming journey. I love that term, Chasmith. Um, and so I had to be really thoughtful about coming out of that. I had to make an intentional decision when I kind of stepped out of that. And one of those decisions was deciding to go visit family, and I ended up staying with them for an extended period of time. And another one was choosing to go on vacation with my boyfriend and some of his friends that I hadn't met before. And that was just a complete reversal from cocoon life, where I was kind of really in control of my environment, to going out to vacation, a completely new place with people I didn't know, who didn't know what brain retraining was. That was about 1 year into my retraining. And on that vacation, I really I wanted to show up. Like, I wanted to be on vacation, even from this regimented brain retraining life. So I ended up going down to just one round a day. I think I may have done two a few days, and just kind of shifted how I was showing up on that vacation from health mode to a live vacation mode. And I was okay. And that was a huge light bulb moment for me. Like, oh, I'm okay. I can go out into the world. And I decided to let go of doing as many rounds a day. And so for this whole second year, I have only done one, maybe if I feel like I need it, 2 rounds a day. But it really kind of ushered in a new period in this journey for me, where I was really choosing to use the tools when I felt that they felt right, as opposed to staying in more of a regimented approach. And that kind of opened up more options for me. And then I think the second big shift for me was when I started to feel ready to work again, when I started to feel like I had the brain space and the time space to really start to do work again. And that kind of coincided, actually, right about that time of that vacation too. I started a coaching course. And that also was a really big step, knowing that I could still be okay, even if I was devoting large chunks of my day to things that weren't related to my healing and security.
Okay. And so you had a career shift as well, like Rena did.
I did. I was an environmental lawyer, and very passionate about the work I was doing, and really had to just be honest with myself that at that point I wasn't ready to kind of go back into the fire, so to speak, of that type of work. I haven't totally let go of the idea that maybe one day I will return to doing environmental policy type work. It just was clear to me that right now wasn't the time for that. And I just got so excited about everything I was learning and wanted to share and become a coach and, spread the gospel, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool. And I'm glad you brought this up, because that's a good point. Sometimes we can have something that we're so passionate about, and like knowing that if maybe you went back into that line of work, that you wouldn't be able to kind of like separate that. Like you would just, it would like bring back that level of passion that sometimes can be intense and not always supportive to our healing and becoming, or our optimized well-being, if it's hard to, like, I know I've been really passionate about things where it's like, my passion is so strong and intense that it's like, well, I'm not sure that I can focus on that right now, because it might be more intensity than is supportive for me right now. And I can't separate it yet, but I do
Yeah.
trust that you could potentially get to a place where you're able to separate it.
Right. And maybe it's like the way that the passion manifests too. Like, I had definitely created habits of how I showed up in that career, in that identity, doing, impact litigation. I feel so passionate about the coaching work now, but it just has a different resonance for me. And I've developed that work protocol in a much more intentional way. And so at this time, it feels really easy to do that work. It actually feels like that work is supportive of my own transformation and becoming, as opposed to something that I have to fight to stay in like a zone that feels good for my nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah, that's such a good point. And how about for you, Jill?
Oh, wow. This, we'll see. We'll see where I go with this. I feel like there was a point, actually, when I did one of Dr. Katz's attunements that took me back to my past love and passion. I had gotten a life purpose coach certification many years ago, and it's always been a super passionate thing of mine. I can really, really get excited about it. And I saw in that attunement that I had always allowed these briars to get in my way, and that it was time for me to be ready for those briars again and to walk through them. I knew that it wasn't time, and so I just kind of sat it, just to look at it. And I ended up taking a Whole Being Institute course last year and got a certification in Whole Being Positive Psychology. And so I have that under my tool belt. Loved every minute of that. And I still knew that it wasn't time yet. So I've put my focus just on organizing my daily life and cleaning out my house after things not getting taken care of for so long. And just recently, even this week, it's so funny you bring this up and you talk about that passion and all that, because just this week I've said I have a fire in my bones that has got to come out. And with the life purpose certification and the Whole Being Positive Psychology certification and the brain retraining knowledge that I've gained now, it's just like there's this conglomeration of tools, and I'm really wanting to share them. So I'm trying to decide what I'm looking at some coaching. I'm not exactly sure what I want that to look like yet, but I've just even this week just been putting feet to that, because I feel like I'm at that point where I can't go back. I cannot keep putting it on the back burner. It's time.
You're in that creation phase.
It's there. It's there. And so I'm also experiencing my limbic system saying, hey, what you doing here? We're doing something new. Not sure about this. So it's new, and I'm seeing that, and I'm going, it's okay. It's okay. This is what we want to do. We've always wanted to do it. We're passionate about it. You can't keep your mouth shut. So let's do it.
Right. And Meredith, I think you wanted to add to that.
Oh yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned Dr. Kat in relation to this emerging into life question, Jill. I, at about a year of my retraining, felt like there was something more I needed. I wanted to kind of dig deeper into some of the emotional aspects that I was working through, and Dr. Kat's course really came at the right time. And I think Dr. Katz's Primal Trust course is such a good opportunity for that emerging into life moment, because she focuses on those values, because she helps you really get into the vision of where you want to take your life. So doing Dr. Katz's Primal Trust course, I think, was a really helpful support as I was kind of transitioning from cocoon phase to new, healthier life phase.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't like this term, but I know it's widely used, and I'm not sure how else to use it. So I'm just going to go ahead and say that I understand that sometimes, as we are emerging back into life in the creation mode, saying yes more, beginning to interact, as one of you mentioned, with people like Meredith went on vacation with people who didn't, they weren't like in this chronic illness and pain community, and it can be interesting to reintegrate back into like basically by any standard normalcy. People who aren't familiar with what you've gone through. And sometimes we have what people call quote unquote setbacks. I don't really like setbacks. I don't think there's ever really a setback. I think we're all always and always still moving forward. However, maybe we end up with some new symptoms that show up, or what's known as like a flare up, where old symptoms kind of reemerge. And sometimes that can be scary because we think, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Oh, I'm doing too much. Like, we start to question the very things we discerned were actually right for us. Which I do agree, Meredith, that Dr. Kat's program can be really helpful when we're navigating this transition for those reasons. But I do wonder if any of you have personally experienced this encounter where you had a quote unquote symptom flare or new symptoms emerge, or just anything where you started to question or doubt yourself, and then how you handled that. And Jill, I think you wanted to speak on that first.
Yeah, I'll say a few words first. Yes, definitely. Last summer, I got a new puppy, and I needed a lot of encouragement from Tessa that these symptoms that seemed to be coming back were fading. We're going to leave again, and she told me then. She said, "Jill, you will always have a new relationship with your nervous system. You're always going to have this relationship with it. You're going to be very well aware of every nuance, and it's okay. It's just a part of those new things. And the more you go on this journey, the stronger." And she said, "You're resilient. Your nervous system bounces back every single time. It does. Look at you. It bounces back." And I saw that resilience for the first time when she said that to me. And it gave me more confidence and more of a, just when those things surface, just the ability to go, "Oh, okay, I see you. That's what's going on here. And it's okay. It's okay." To acknowledge, and even just a new relationship with emotion. That last year was my really, really messy year for learning to kind of navigate emotion for the first time in my life, probably. Yeah.
Okay. So she was there to support you and help you understand, like, this isn't a setback. Don't go into that fear mode, and like just keep moving forward and trust.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Just acknowledge it, love it, and keep going. Take space for it if you need to. It's no big deal. It's normal. It's temporary. You're going to be fine. You are fine.
Right. Rena, what about you?
I want to piggyback on what Jill just said about that relationship with whatever comes up. And I think that is the critical piece, that when I like to envision it like a spiral, that this journey has been a spiral where, you go around the circle and I feel like I should be closing the circle. And then all of a sudden I'm like, ooh, what? Wait, what? I'm back at the beginning? But no, I'm not back at the beginning. I'm actually one step further in from when I started. And it's a whole different perspective, a whole different relationship with this thing now than it was last time around. And to me, it's every time I go around the circle and every time I might have a quote unquote setback, it's a reminder to me of that place in the middle of the circle, which is me. And that's what I'm growing towards, is that me that's right in the, not in the circle, in the spiral, sorry. That's the me in the middle of the spiral, that every time I go around and things are going to happen in life and I'm not going to like all of it, but I just keep going around, and my relationship with whatever happens keeps shifting and I become stronger me. I become the adult Rena who can deal with all this. And I become more and more myself as I go around the spiral.
I really like that analogy. It's really great. I like the spiral thing. And it's funny because when you think about like the geometries of life, like spirals are so ingrained in so much of life and nature in general. And it's just a really great way to look at it, that you're always Like you are always like still taking a step forward. You're never going back to square one, no matter how it might feel physically in the moment.
I really love that spiral. I really love that image, Rena, of just coming closer and closer to yourself at the center. Um, Chasmith, I also don't like the word setback. And the word that I've really settled on are ebbs, because there's ebbs and flows. And I absolutely had ebbs along my journey. And what surprised me about those ebbs is how in the middle of them, all of the successes and improvements I made felt completely lost. Like in the moment of some of those initial ebbs, everything was gone. And I felt like I was back in the past. And it took me some time to start to recognize, like, oh, this is my brain. This is my brain in an old loop that I have found my way out of and back into. And the cool thing now is, when I find myself having those moments, those ebbs, they don't feel as strong. Like they don't have as much of a gravitational pull as they used to have. They don't have as much of a physical component as they used to have. And so now there's just this capacity, usually when they're happening, to say, oh, this is one of those ebbs. I know these happens. I can ride this wave. A friend said to me really early on, it sounds like you're in a period of contraction. And after every contraction comes an expansion. And that was such a helpful outlook for me. So now, whenever I'm in like an ebb or in a contraction, I'm like, okay, cool. I've got my expansion coming around the corner. Something really good is coming up for me. And that's really helped me a lot.
Yes. 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 I agree so much with that. That was my thing. Like when I was like actively brain retraining, whenever I had the ebb, I would be like, yes, this is, well, at first it's a little scary, but what happens, like you said, after that ebb, there's like, after the contraction, there's expansion. And what I would start noticing is every time I had this quote unquote flare up or ebb, it's almost like I felt like I took this like huge leap forward afterwards, where I felt
Right.
even better. And like I was like really stepping forward into something new. And I started noticing that and taking that as evidence so that I could then like respond differently and remember. And like how you said, I would actually be like celebrate, like, oh, this is awesome. If I'm feeling this right now, that means something real good is coming.
Right. It's a really good sign that we're up leveling, I think, a lot of the time. And
Yeah.
I also just want to reiterate, I love what you said, Jill, about not being afraid of your nervous system. I think that sometimes with DNRS, at least, I don't know how it is with other protocols, but with DNRS in the beginning, our whole goal is to try to get out of that, fight or flight can reactivity. And it can create a new cross wiring where we start to think that being in that sympathetic nervous system is bad, and we have to avoid it forever. And I think a really important moment for me in transitioning was remembering that the sympathetic nervous system is there for a reason. It plays an important role. And as we get back into real life, which has, moments where you have to jump into action. I remember I was helping my boyfriend move, and we only had a few hours to pack up the house before we had to go. And that is a moment when adrenaline kicks in. And at first it was scary. Like I had done something wrong. And then I had a moment where I was like, well, actually, this is a moment for a little bit of adrenaline. Like, give me that push so we can finish this up. And I know I can be okay because I can, come back down after back into that parasympathetic nervous system state.
Yes, because you have the tools.
Right.
And it's sympathetic isn't a state we have to be afraid of. It is a normal part of life. The thing is, we don't want to get stuck chronically in it. But when we can teach our body to ebb and flow into and out of it, that's normal and okay. And like you said, there's times we legitimately need to go into it, but not fearing it and knowing that like, that's okay. This is a legitimate reason to be in this state right now. And it's not a setback, and I'm going to be able to get out of it. It's okay. It's normal. It's natural. Just a different reframe around it. But I can see what you're saying. Like sometimes when you are going through this, you almost do go through a period where it's like you almost become afraid of it, as if you're never allowed to reach sympathetic again. And it's like, no, 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 it's okay. This is normal. We actually need to go into this state.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Jill, you had something you wanted to say about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for that reminder, Meredith, about what's coming after the ebb. And I was sitting here thinking that I hear myself often say, I'm having a moment. I'm having a moment. It seems like I call it a moment rather than a setback. And I realized where I got that from was from Kristen Neff, because her self-compassion practice has been huge for me as well, which I didn't mention earlier, but I used that a ton last year. And I think it's stuck since I'm hearing myself say I'm having a moment. This is just a moment. This is just a moment, and it will pass. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a moment. It's all just like a snapshot in time in the grand scheme of things.
mhm.
And I think it's also important to note that, like, we sometimes, and I know this has been talked about by other guests on the show, sometimes we get this kind of fantasy idea that we're going to like do this healing work and then we're never going to have any symptoms ever again. And the goal is not to, like, we're humans having human experiences. So it's likely that we're going to feel things and sensations in the body again, but it's, are we getting stuck in it? Is it becoming chronic, or do they ebb and flow like life? So that's an important one to remember, that there's not this idealized point we're trying to get to where we never ever feel sensations, but yet just not getting stuck. I would be curious to know what some of your retraining and or just self-care grounding practices are like these days, as most of you are kind of emerging back into life. You're starting careers, you're coaching. You know, I don't know if Rena or Jill, I don't know if you're married or entering into new relationships or already in old ones, but I know Meredith has a boyfriend. So, what now, as you're living life, are you doing to stay grounded in these new belief systems, stay grounded in your values, stay grounded in your new behaviors that are supportive? Rena, you can go.
All right. So, one thing I really started doing was hiking and getting out into a forest that's near my home. And I love going once a week if it's not raining or if it's not very hot, because it can get very hot where I live. And when I walk there, it feels like the trees are holding me and hugging me. And that is like my greatest medicine of my week, when I go to the forest and I do the loop and just feel super supported by that. Other than that, I do yoga, I dance. I really love dancing. That was one thing that I didn't have in my life for many, many years, and I have brought back into my life in the last couple of years, and that's been tremendous. Just feeling free and like I can move however I want to move that day. Some days are more, some days are less, but it doesn't matter as long as I'm moving through dancing. Those are my big movement pieces that I just feel super supported by. And beyond that, I love learning. That's something I've always loved doing, and I find I've set up partners to study partners to study different things together, read through different books, have different book clubs. I find that also very, very supportive. What else? I think my relationships have definitely improved tremendously through this work. And it's also something I continue to work on very deeply. I think one of the modalities that have really helped me with my relationships is something called nonviolent communication. And really immersing myself in that has been so helpful to understand myself more and my family members, and to be able to be the greatest support that I can be for them and for myself in life. So
Mm. So you really have an embodied approach. You got the dancing, the hiking, the yoga, like you're really spending time really being present with your body, which is so awesome.
yeah,
You said the trees hug you. Do you hug them?
I haven't done that yet, but you know what? Next week when I go, I will keep that
Hug
in
a tree.
mind.
Hug a tree. Or sometimes if it's a really cool texture, I just like to pet them.
Aw.
Yeah, they're really, I don't know. I love trees, so they're very special to me. That's really awesome. Okay. And do you have any like kind of as far as like all the tools and modalities that you've learned along the way, do you still have any kind of practice that you integrate, whether it's like journaling, expressive writing, visualizations? Do you do any of that on an as needed basis to support you?
So I'm currently taking Dr. Kat's program.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. And so I'm doing her ABC practice most days and her attunements. And that's pretty much where I do that work.
Okay, that's awesome. And I also wanted to just side note say I love your study group thing. That's such a great idea because I also am so passionate about learning and it's so much fun to do things with people. So that's really cool that you kind of do that with people and like yeah, I don't know, I just love that. So great
Thanks.
idea. hmm Meredith, how about you?
Yeah, it's definitely evolved. I started a little book club that lasted for 2021, and we read different brain retraining related books, which was really fun because I did it with friends who were not retraining, and I felt like it was great to kind of share these conversations with them and give them a window into the different types of ideas that I was thinking about. Um, Right now, where I've landed is I do a round every morning, which is either a DNRS round or an ABC round. And I really just like that to start my day. My mornings are really important to me. So I usually do a round. I usually try and get some stretching in, like a little bit of yoga if I can, just 20 or 30 minutes. Um, and then in the middle of the day, I'll try and do something supportive. Lately, that's been more and more meditation. Um, I'll just mention in case this resonates with anybody, but meditation was just not helpful for me until I reached a certain place in my retraining. Um, I know that so many people found it so helpful, but for me, with my body, my sensations, my limbic system, trying to meditate too early in my retraining really was unhelpful. And so I have finally reached a place where I can meditate, which is super exciting. In the middle of the day, I try that or maybe a walk or something. And then every night I've started using this device called Flowly, and it's a heart rate variability monitor that's set up to basically like a little VR headset. So I put it on and I'm in this little world. It's usually like a very beautiful natural world, and it monitors my breathing through biofeedback. Um, Flowers will bloom and the night sky will brighten. And it's a really lovely way to do breath practice. And I like to do it in the evening before I go to bed.
I love that. That sounds really neat. I'm gonna have to look that up and then maybe drop a link in the show notes for anyone curious.
Yeah, I have a discount code I can give you to put in the show notes if you'd like, Chasmith. I'm really into it.
Okay, yeah. And I really appreciate that you brought up the part about the meditation because I think that's just so much evidence once again that we are not all the same. We're not one size fits all. And to like really this it comes back to that like really getting in tune with ourself and discerning and being our own advocate and not forcing something that just legitimately doesn't feel right. Because if you early on just forced yourself to do these meditations that weren't supporting you because somebody else told you that's what you needed to do, you would have been essentially doing a disservice to yourself. And once again, essentially going against your truth. And so, yeah, it's just nice to know, like, hey, experiment with these different tools and what really resonates for you in your heart, in your mind, in your body, and trust that then you're on the right path and that you don't have to force something, and that maybe, as your experience was down the road, you can try something again. Don't close off forever, like, because the flip side is you hear people like, no, 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 that doesn't work for me, I tried it 20 years ago. And
Right.
you're like, well, a lot's happened since then. Have you tried it lately? And because, like, now
Yeah.
you love it, and had you not been open to trying it again, you wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I think that really also comes back to Rena's point about being in the spiral and what works for you at different places in the spiral. I did read John Sarno's Heal Your Back Pain more recently. That created a fun little ebb, I will say that. And I don't think I would have been ready for that content, before I started my brain retraining journey. So I think really honoring that there is a season for different practices, different mentalities, different philosophies, and just following that path organically is so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of all that, Jill, how about you? What's your kind of grounding ritual, self-care, becoming healing practice like these days?
I agree with Meredith on the meditation. That was my experience as well. And now I love meditation. Um, and that's essentially how I start my day is with a meditation. And I'm like Meredith, I love my morning time. My morning coffee and quiet is probably my favorite time of day. And start that off with a meditation. Um, and usually get some exercise before noon. Sometimes that's somatics. It just kind of depends on what I'm feeling for the day. Spend, I just really reserve the whole morning usually just for whatever I want it to be, self-care and self-love, self-compassion. Um, Not hard and fast, but it's my favorite time of day to really see what needs to be done and maybe wash some clothes. I do chores and things like that too. So, um, and then usually in the afternoon, I'll find a spot of time to do a little bit of meditation. I love learning as well, so I spend a lot of time studying, reading, listening to a variety of things. Um, I'm still since now kind of the phase I'm in is I'm just keenly aware of the smallest of triggers and resistance and patterns, and it's almost become like a game to me to find them and and really shift them, rewire them. I've had some amazing aha moments. I spend a lot of time in aha moments and some of them that are not quite so much fun, but just approach them with awareness and so that's kind of I don't know, my daily every day just kind of evolves like it is. I am married. I've been married for 42 years, and my and I are actually right now looking at patterns in our marriage that neither of us have been happy with, and we're actively engaging, really building a brand new us, and it's pretty fascinating and fun, really challenging, all of that good stuff. I also have 5 grandsons, so I'm ebbing and flowing in and out of life with them. I'm getting ready to have them for 3 days. So, just a lot of family connections that I ebb and flow in and out of. So, yeah.
Oh, that's so fun that you and your husband are doing that together now. Like,
Yeah.
wow, what a treat.
It's
Really
super
awesome.
super important. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's really beautiful.
He calls me Jill 2.0. So, he's not sure what to do with it sometimes.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
So much. Okay. So I want to ask one more big question. It's the question I ask at the end of every podcast episode. So hopefully you're all wonderfully prepared. And that question is, if you could only spread one message for the rest of your life, what message would you want to share with the world? Who wants to go first?
I can go. I think that message would just be you are not broken. I think having coached now for the past year, it's been really interesting to see all the ways that people think whatever is difficult for them is like this uniquely them problem, and just the shame and that comes up around that, and just this universality in the difficulties that we face, and they might show up in different ways, but that none of us are broken, and we all, as your podcast says, Jasmine, we all have the power within us. So I think that would be my message. And you would think I would have prepared that having listened to your podcast, but I hadn't. So maybe I'll think of another one later and wish I had said it.
No, that's such a good one. It's such an important reminder. We do need to all remember, because I think, and all of you have done the, Dr. Kat's program, but I think she even talks about this in her program, this fix it mentality. Like, we're broken and we need to be fixed. And we're always holding a vibration of whatever our core beliefs are. So if we're holding this core belief that I'm broken and I need to be fixed, that's the vibration we're sending into the universe, which affects and impacts what we attract in what we create and what manifests in our life. And when we can realize that we're not broken, like, yes, we can all evolve and grow and become and lean into and shift, but we're not broken, and there was nothing to ever fix. So I think that's wonderful, Meredith. Thank you for giving that reminder to all of us and everyone who's listening. And Rena, did you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm going to see if I can put this into words. It's more of like an inner feeling that I know. And that is that when we can get out of our own way, then the universe can pour the tremendous abundance into us. And then we can live as us. But we get in our own way so much, and we just block that from coming in. And so much of this work, going back to this whole idea of fixing versus healing, whatever it is, fixing versus becoming, whatever you want to call it, to me, the way that I try to look at it is just get out of my own way. Do what I need to do and let the universe pour all that abundance in the right time.
I love that. It's so beautifully said too. Yes. Yeah, you put that into words very well. Yeah, that's awesome. And Jill, what about you?
I think in a nutshell, I just really, really desire for people to know who they are at their core and their true self, and to give themselves complete freedom to live within that. There's just so much power right there.
Mm-hmm. There really is so much power. Oh, that's so true. These are all such great messages. The world would be a better place if we all just got those messages and really felt them at a cellular level. So I'm going to, in a moment, let you share how people can connect with you if they want to reach out to you, and possibly just, I know a couple of you have mentioned that you're coaching and stuff now. But I did first want to open up the floor. If there's anything that I didn't ask you, any of you, that you feel like is a really pertinent part of the journey, that you feel is like a message or just something important that you would want to share to anyone who's listening, wherever they're at on their journey, because you feel like, man, if somebody told this to me, it would have really helped me. If any of you have anything you want to add, Rena, you can go.
I kind of said it before. Thank you for asking this question. But as we were talking, it became even stronger within me that when I did a certain program, I felt like I had to follow it to the T or else. And that put so much pressure on me. And when I finally took a step back and said, just take what works and leave the rest, that's when things started to shift. And just, yes, it's hard to trust ourselves sometimes, and we don't necessarily know where that voice is coming from. Is it limbic? Is it really our intuition? What is it truly? But when you feel like you're banging your head against the wall trying to figure something out and it's not working, to just be able to say, wow, I need to recalculate and go in a different direction, like just like a GPS, would recalculate you. Like, this just isn't working. You're off the road. Just go back and you'll find your path again.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Yes, thanks for bringing that up. Does anyone else have anything they feel like they needed or wanted to just add and share?
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Rena. And I have this feeling every single time I listen to your podcast, Chasmith, which is just, you don't get through this journey without acquiring so much wisdom. And I just have really enjoyed you, Jill and Rena, today, and everything you've shared, all the wisdom you have. I think there's two things I would like to add. I think one thing that it took me a while to get down to was just a core belief of fragility that I had. And I know everybody has really different stories. I never really had like a specific perfect storm. I kind of grew up with various illnesses and health issues. And at some point in my journey, I just realized, oh, wow, I had this idea that I was fragile. And I'm just not. I'm actually really resilient. So I think looking out for those deeper core beliefs that kind of keep us locked in this idea that we need to protect ourselves. Um, I think that would be the first. And then the second one we like very briefly touched on earlier. And for me, it's just been so important. And that is that beyond all the limbic noise and fear, there is this thing inside of us that has wisdom and knowing and direction. And I call that my inner compass. But we all have that. And it's really this healing journey, I think, more than anything, is about tapping into that healing journey, that into that inner compass that says, this is what I need. This is what's going to support me. This is what's going to bring me to life again.
Yes. You didn't get to see it, but I was over here like fist bumping the air when you talked about fragility, because like, that's just, that's like so important to me. It's like, everyone has to know they're super freaking powerful. Everyone has to know they're worthy of loving themselves, and everyone has to know that they're resilient AF. They are not fragile. We are not fragile.
Yeah.
And it's hard because like there's so many people out there in the world that have such good intentions, but their messages are getting in other people's heads, creating this idea that we're fragile and that we're not capable of handling and being present around and being exposed to like life. And we are so resilient. So yes, I was fist bumping, smiling.
Yeah, and
I love that one.
that's a message I'm still, getting through to my limbic system. And it's its own spiral, right? But that's been a really, really important core belief to uncover for me.
Yeah, so totally true. That's good. Yeah, that's good to recognize it, because it's not like if you've been thinking and feeling and operating like you were fragile for a long time and having it reinforced, it's not just as easy as being like, well, I'm anti-fragile. It's like, well, I believe this now, and now I have to get this into the subconscious and get my brain on board.
Right.
The process. Jill, did you have anything at all that you wanted to add?
Just very brief. I piggyback what Meredith said about the fragility and just being strong. I think one of the things I realized about myself was that I was stronger than I ever knew I was, that I had the power to move through resistance. And I really was amazed at the human strength. And it's there. So basically, I would just say, keep going, just keep going. I had a phrase at one point that I would say to myself one summer when I really felt like I was really close to getting back to pre-perfect storm. And I had to kind of go, no, I didn't come this far to only come this far. And so that became my mantra there for a while. And I began to, look and see what did I really want, and latch hold of, believing that I can get what I want. And so basically just keep going, just keep going. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, Jill, thank you. Because that's another thing that's so true is like we are so much stronger. Like for everyone out there who's listening, and for all of you, and for me, like we've been through shit.
We
And we're still
have.
here, and we're still here,
Yes.
and we're still showing up, and we're still alive. We didn't like give up on life. We didn't take our life away. Like we're here, we're showing up, we're learning, we're doing the work. We're like everyone who's listening, I know everyone's been through it. Like they don't quit. You just keep going, and you keep going, and that is strength that we don't always give ourselves credit for. Like being willing to just keep having hope and trying again and trying something new, that is powerful, powerful strength. So, yes, thank you, Jill. All right, ladies. How can people connect with you if you have any websites? Because you have your personal business and you have coach offerings. How can people connect with you, or maybe you have social media where they can follow along or reach out if they just felt like something that you said today really resonated for them and they want to connect? Jill, you can go if you want.
Okay. Email address, Jill. No, wait a minute. white.jill.e@gmail.com. I'm also on WhatsApp. I do have an Instagram account, Pathway to the Heart, with the number 2 for the word 2. I'm not using it much though right now. So I think email would be a great way to contact me, or WhatsApp.
Okay, white.jill.e@gmail.com. All right, and Meredith.
Yes, so I have Instagram. It's at Inner Compass Health. Hopefully, by the time this airs, my website will be up, which will be innercompasshealth.com. And my email is meredithwilenskycoaching@gmail.com. And maybe I should give that to you to put in the show notes, Chasma.
I'll just put that in the show notes.
Okay, great.
I'll put it all in the show notes. Yeah, it is. All right. And Rena, how about you?
Yeah, so I have a website. It's renariser.com, Rena with an E, riser with an S. And you'll put the how to spell it in the show notes, I guess. That's the best way to contact me, through my website, and take it from there.
Awesome. All right, ladies. Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much for volunteering to show up and be with me and each other today and have this open dialogue and share your insights. Like I've said before, we if you've been through this journey, you've been through this story, we're experts, man. We're experts at this point in our own personal experience. And you guys showing up and being vulnerable and willing to share your insights and the things that you've learned and discovered along the way, it always supports somebody. So thank you. Thank you for being here and being vulnerable and courageous and wonderful and awesome. And thank you for being committed to your journeys, because when you show up in the world and be your best self, you're making a difference in the world.
Thank you so much, Chasmith. It's been fun.
Yes, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
All right, that is a wrap. Panel number 2. I do hope you enjoyed today's chat amongst these lovely ladies and myself. I hope that you found something inspiring to take into your life. And I really enjoy these panel discussions. So I'm just going to put it out there. If you are at a place where you think that it could be fun and challenging, but fun to engage in a panel discussion, reach out to me and let's figure something out. The topics and opportunities are endless, and there is absolutely no amount of quote unquote healed that you have to be to bring value to this discussion. You are already perfect, you are already valuable, and you are already good enough exactly where you're at. So remember to honor whatever the need is that is calling out to you this week. And until next time, as always, make this week amazing or great.